Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode with Dale Vaz. He's a well-known technology leader, and in this podcast, he will share his behind-the-scenes learnings and lessons. Welcome, Dale. Thanks for taking the time for us today.
Thank you for having me, Vani.
Dale, you have been in large companies, and you've also worked with startups now leading Swiggy. Can you share with us your thought process in moving from a large company to a startup, how that works?
So just to give you some background, I began my career in Infosys, which at the time and continues to be a large software service company for India. And I spent around 7 years there. And then post that, I moved to Amazon, where I was for around 11 years. And Amazon is a large company now. But when I joined Amazon 11 years back, it was a pretty mid-sized company, if you say. Along the way, as we scaled with Amazon, I also picked up a lot of lessons around how a company like Amazon scales. I also had this itch to say, how do I apply this learning that I've gained at Amazon to something which I can also scale and call my own, right? So we moved to India around 4 years back now. As a customer in India, especially having moved from the US, we started to fall in love with Swiggy from pretty much the first few weeks being here. The convenience that the product delivered, as well as the focus on customer experience, was something that really stuck out to me. I did start to think seriously about where are the opportunities out there that I can apply the learnings that I've gained at Amazon, as well as make an impact to the larger Indian ecosystem. Because I did think that one of the opportunities we have is India is in a really interesting spot right now, where there's a huge consumer base, a huge mid-age population that's scaling and growing, that has a lot of aspirations. And there are opportunities for consumer companies to really make an impact and change the way people live in India. And so when I was looking out for that, I really wanted to be part of that journey where I'm actually contributing some amount to the transformation of the Indian consumer space itself.
You've always been in and around, great products. And today, personalization of product is a necessity for any company to deliver. But what exactly do you think goes behind, getting that right and succeeding in building great products?
Like if you look at what most companies aspire to be right now, everybody wants to be customer focused, customer obsessed. In some sense, that is the new mantra that people want to focus on. What does it really mean when you say customer focused and customer obsessed? I think it's really about truly understanding who your consumer is and who the customers are on your platform. And in some sense, going really deep to understand what their needs are. So with Swiggy, for example, when you think about food, a consumer's needs change through the day and even through the day of the week. As a customer, you may want something light when you are working in office, but maybe on the weekend you may be feeling a little more indulgent and you may want to have something more expansive. Similarly, when you open the app in the morning, you intuitively want a breakfast choice. And when you open the app in the afternoon, you again want a lunch option. So as our consumers are also kind of going through their own life stage, we realize that consumer needs are changing. And really to be able to personalize the product is to be able to deliver an experience that really matches the individual's needs, individual specific requirements. And so from a personalization perspective, we start with really doing a lot of analytics to understand who our consumers are. We segment our customers into different types of cohorts, if you may. We use a lot of ML there to be able to identify customer preferences. For example, is this customer somebody who prefers a certain cuisine type? Is this somebody who actually will prefer a discount versus having maybe access to a 5-star rated restaurant? So there are different cuts and cohorts that we can segment customers into. And then once you segment those customers, it's about changing the overall experience all the way from discovery till the way the product is actually delivered to the customer. So I think it's that kind of journey that we are on. We've definitely started, but as a journey, it's really about starting from deeply understanding your customer and then trying to ensure that your product is flexible enough to be able to match their needs, their unique needs.
it seems to me that every founder gets asked, what is your data science strategy or something like that, by at least investors. So where should the data science group belong in an organization? And how do you make sure that this becomes data becomes a cross-functional, collaborative outcome?
I think the interesting bit that I would want to share is that I don't think every company needs to have the brightest and smartest data science talent on its staff. One of the tenets, one of the principles that I've applied in the past is stand on the shoulders of giants. What that means is, there are lots of people out there, lots of really smart people out there who've done a lot of good work in being able to build algorithms or propose solutions for solving many, many problems, right? And as a starting company, you may not have the budget to be able to hire a lot of those talented individuals. But the good thing is the information is publicly available. There are research papers available out there. There are conferences that you can attend. There are also people who are learning data science and transforming from being engineers to being data scientists, and see how can you leverage that. So when you look at a company, I would say the first part of your strategy will have to be, first, let's build the data. You need to first focus on starting to collect the data that you have, which becomes the base on which you build your intelligent application stack. So as a young startup, I would say the first thing you need to do is really focus on saying, are we instrumenting our product to track and collect every aspect of data that we can? And this is very often something that people don't do, because you're trying to build fast, you're trying to move fast. You're not really trying to think about where do I log the information. You're really thinking about how can I release as quickly as possible. So once you build your data, I think the next thing to look at is saying, what kind of quick wins can I derive to be able to showcase the value of ML to the organization? You may not even need a scientist for that. You may be able to even have an engineer pick up enough data science knowledge on the online space. You may also be able to take an open source AI package or a module and then apply that to your data to be able to quickly derive some value. So you can go from having zero data science to be able to have at least 50% data science contribution by just out of the box, off the shelf AI products that exist out there. There are also different examples where you may choose to look at using AI products that exist, like you have AWS that provides SageMaker, or you have Google that provides a bunch of AI services, as well as many other providers. And many times, you just have to give them your data, and they'll be able to provide to you back output in a prediction. So when you think about a startup, I think for me, data science is like this evolving journey that you go, where you start from essentially looking to say, how do I find my data, and how do I find people who can help me use this data? And at some point, it could even be very junior resources, to eventually getting to a point where you start to get more advanced with the applications of data. And the good news for most founders is that you don't need to start with a data science team on day one. I would rather say that everybody in the company needs to be AI enabled, even product management, even leadership, so that you have a good understanding of what AI is. And then you can use that to guide your team. And you can also rely on resources both within and outside of your company to be able to help you. With Swiggy, we've also done experiments where we've partnered with universities. We've actually had joint research projects with universities both in the US and in India. We've also partnered with startups that are focused on solving some really hard problems. So, if you look at this tenet of standing on the shoulders of giants, I think if you apply that as a mental model, as a young company, you can look to leverage the larger ecosystem and really look to say, how do I build AI competence without having to invest a lot of money and time in actually having my own team?
Well, Swiggy is a giant in itself now, and I hope that many of our Indian startups can stand on that tenet of standing on your shoulders in time to come. But as I said, this data whole thing is a bit of an enigma. So is there like a example to bring to life from a data centered or a data insight, a decision that led to significant product improvement for you to bring this to life?
Let's go back to the personalization example. I think one of the things that if you look at when Swiggy began, the focus area and the target segment was the single bachelor who is working, who is looking for some option for getting food. And that was kind of our focus when we started Swiggy as a company, right? And so you're targeting it on a very specific niche segment of customers. And then over the last 5 years, as Swiggy itself has grown, our customers have also grown. And so as we start to look at the data now, and we start to look deeply into the data, what we're seeing is some interesting insights about how customers' patterns of shopping have actually changed on the product. And now you see, you actually start to see people go through life stages when you look at their ordering patterns. You look at people who are typically ordering like a single meal to now suddenly they get married. And now that same customer may be ordering meals for two. And then, a few years later, they actually have a child. And now you start to see them ordering a little more food, but focusing also a lot more on healthy options and so on. So if you start to look at the data, and one of the insights that we gathered was that our consumers actually are going through their own life stages. And we need, as a company, to reflect what their needs are as they change through those life stages. It's a pretty interesting one. It gets magnified even further in the case of Swiggy because it's a hyper-local product. So when you think about a consumer, a bachelor in Bangalore versus a bachelor in Chennai, they each have very different needs. So it's just not simple to say there's one customer segment and let's focus on this segment. You really have to think about how do you break down Swiggy into a collection of hyper-local communities, where each community essentially has customers who themselves are going through different life stages. And so you've got this complex matrix of saying every location is different. And within each location, over time, every customer's needs change. And so how do you build a product that is dynamic enough to actually support those needs so that as a customer, your specific individual need is reflected by what Swiggy provides? That for us is like the big holy grail of what we're focusing on. And that's an area where I think as people think about their products, I think it's really important to not think about like the consumer as one consumer cohort or even two consumer cohorts or n cohorts. You also got to think about your consumer cohorts as changing over time, because as those consumers change with time, their needs may also change, and hence your product also needs to evolve to meet those changing needs.
Technology is changing very, very fast all around us. And there are two parts, right? How does a business keep up with the rapid changing technology? And secondly, how does an individual, an engineer, keep up with their skills from rapidly changing technology? And that by itself, though exciting, can also be stressful. Love to hear your philosophy on this.
Yeah, I actually think it's harder these days to learn because there's so much out there in terms of different learning opportunities. In fact, when I think about the amount of content that's being pushed down to people, I think there's almost a content overload. So if you are an engineer, or if you are a technology leader and you're trying to say, how do I upgrade myself? There's probably 10, 20 different ways in which people are trying to sell content to you. Why don't you become a data scientist? Why don't you go and focus on analytics? Why don't you figure out deep learning or reinforcement learning or any other such technology? So I think the first thing that I at least have learned is to really try to figure out what area do I want to focus on. In some sense, you've got to be able to make some hard choices on saying, I probably cannot learn everything about everything. And I really need to now focus my attention, my energy on certain specific domains that I deeply care about. So I think you start from that. You start from narrowing your focus on being able to pick and choose the areas where you want to be able to get really deep. And then there you can focus and you can go deep. And then for the areas that you don't really have a lot of deep insight, you find people who can help you with that. So part of being a leader is also to say, can I have a team of people who can actually help me fill some of the shortcomings or the gaps that I have? Maybe I'm not very interested in learning about building UI. I'm more of a backend engineer. But can I work with people who can actually help me build a full stack product by bringing the UI skills to the table, right? So really want to pick your focus area, and then you want to surround yourself with people who can fill your gaps.
Is there like any one advice that has stood the test of time for you that you follow?
It goes back to when I was starting out in my career. It was in Amazon at the time, and I was at a point with a pretty big point in my own career where I was working in a team that I had a pretty good role there, and there was a certain career plan and focus in that team. And then this leader came out from within Amazon and asked me to join his team. And at the time, the role that he was offering was very ambiguous. The role was not very well defined. There wasn't a very clear career progression in that role. But the ambition of what we were trying to do was very big, right? So then I went and talked to my manager at the time, who really gave me this line which has stuck with me, saying, focus on accomplishments, titles will follow. And so his point was, don't try to think about titles and don't try to think about career progression in terms of specific destinations you need to reach. Think about career in terms of the accomplishments that you are creating over time. So with that clarity, I actually did leave that pretty safe role I was in, and I moved and joined this leader who was running this, kind of ambiguous role. That leader was Amit Agarwal, and I was like the first person on his team. And I stayed with him for 8 years, and in that 8 years, we went on to launch Amazon internationally. We launched Amazon in Spain. We launched Amazon in Italy. Then we came and focused on India, and with India, was part of the team that scaled the Amazon India team. So for me now, when I look back, that decision to focus on the accomplishment of saying I have an opportunity to take on a role that can become big was a lot more valuable than focusing on a career title.
This is really invaluable advice and fascinating conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Dale, for this very candid conversation.
Thank you, Vani.